The alarm bells rang across 6 different star systems at the same moment. From the crystal cities of the Resonance to the floating gas platforms of the Drifters, the message was clear and urgent. The humans had gone too far. Ambassador Krell adjusted his ceremonial armor as he walked through the corridors of the massive space station orbiting Nexus 7. His 4 eyes gleamed with satisfaction as he reviewed the battle plans on his portable screen. After months of secret negotiations, the impossible had finally happened. 6 major galactic powers had agreed to work together for the first time in recorded history. The reason was simple. Humans scared them. In just 50 years since making contact with galactic civilization, the species from the small blue planet called Earth had spread to 27 star systems. They built colonies faster than anyone thought possible. Their ships moved through hyperspace routes that other species considered too dangerous. Their soldiers fought with a recklessness that bordered on insanity. Most disturbing of all, they kept winning. The Great Council Chamber of Nexus 7 had never seen such a gathering. Representatives from the ancient Watchers floated in their energy fields next to the mechanical forms of the collective. The aquatic depths had filled special tanks with their homeworld water, while the hegemony delegation stood in perfect military formation. "The motion is clear," Krell announced, his voice echoing through the massive dome. "The human colony of Haven Prime must be evacuated within 72 standard hours. If they refuse, we will remove them by force." A low hum of agreement filled the chamber. Haven Prime was humanity's newest colony, established in a system that 3 different species claimed as their ancestral territory. The humans had ignored all protests and built their settlement anyway. It was the perfect excuse to finally take action. Ambassador Thren of the Watchers spoke next, his ancient voice carrying the weight of millions of years. "The combined fleet will consist of over 3,000 vessels. Surely even the deathworlders cannot argue with such overwhelming force." The term deathworlder had become common among galactic species when referring to humans. Their home planet was considered impossibly hostile by galactic standards. Violent weather, dangerous predators, toxic plants, and gravity so strong it would crush most alien species. Yet somehow, humans had not only survived but thrived in such conditions. This made them unpredictable and dangerous. News of the ultimatum reached Earth's military headquarters within hours. The war room beneath the Swiss Alps buzzed with activity, as generals and admirals reviewed their options. The holographic display in the center of the room showed the positions of every human ship in known space. The numbers were not encouraging. Admiral Brooks, a veteran of humanity's expansion wars, studied the data with growing concern. "We have maybe 800 combat-ready vessels scattered across 12 different systems. Even if we could recall them all, which we can't, we're still outnumbered 4 to 1. General Hayes nodded grimly. "The aliens have chosen their target well. Haven Prime is at the edge of our territory, far from our main battle fleets. By the time we could organize a proper defense, the colony would already be under siege." "Commander," Torres looked up from her tactical display. "What about evacuation? 3 million colonists is a lot of people, but we could start moving them now." "Absolutely not," Brooks replied firmly. "The moment we start evacuating Haven Prime, every other human colony becomes a target. We show weakness here, and they'll push us back system by system until we're trapped in our home solar system." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. This wasn't just about one colony. This was about whether humanity would continue to expand among the stars or be forced back into isolation. "Sir," Torres said quietly, "what about the Defiance?" Every head in the room turned toward her. The UES Defiance was humanity's most classified project, a single ship that had been under construction for the past 5 years. It incorporated every technological breakthrough, every tactical innovation, every hard-learned lesson from humanity's brief but violent introduction to galactic warfare. "The Defiance isn't ready for deployment," Hayes objected. "The crew has barely finished their training runs." "The crew is ready," Brooks corrected, "and so is the ship. The question is whether one vessel can make a difference against 3,000. The debate that followed would be studied in military academies for decades to come. Some argued for a conventional response, gathering as many ships as possible for a traditional fleet engagement. Others pushed for diplomatic solutions, offering concessions to avoid the conflict entirely. But Brooks had a different idea entirely. "We send the Defiance alone," he announced finally. "One ship, one crew, one message." The room erupted in protests. Sending a single ship against the combined fleets of 6 galactic powers seemed like suicide, but Brooks held up his hand for silence. "Think about it," he said. "They're expecting us to either surrender or show up with everything we've got. They've planned for both scenarios. But what if we do something completely unexpected? What if we send one ship and tell them to go home?" "Sir, with respect," Torres said, "one ship can't possibly. One ship can do exactly what we need it to do," Brooks interrupted. "It can show the galaxy that we're not afraid, that we don't negotiate with bullies, that any species wanting to threaten human colonies had better think twice about the consequences." The transmission went out within the hour. The UES Defiance, humanity's newest and most powerful warship, would depart for Haven Prime immediately. The ship's mission was simple in concept but terrifying in execution. Defend the colony against impossible odds and send a message that would echo across the galaxy. As the meeting broke up and the various officers returned to their duties, Brooks remained behind, staring at the holographic display. The Defiance appeared as a single blue dot moving toward a red zone containing over 3,000 enemy contacts. His aide approached quietly. "Admiral, do you really think one ship can make a difference?" Brooks smiled grimly. "Son, the aliens are about to learn something important about humanity. We don't send ships because we have to. We send them because we choose to. And when we choose to make a stand, numbers don't matter nearly as much as will." The die had been cast. In less than 48 hours, the most one-sided battle in galactic history would begin. But nobody, not even Brooks himself, could have predicted what would happen when human engineering met alien overconfidence in the cold vacuum of space above Haven Prime. The galaxy was about to discover why humans were called deathworlders, and why that title was both a warning and a promise. The coffee had gone cold hours ago, but Dan Rivers kept drinking it anyway. The bridge of the UES Defiance hummed with quiet efficiency as the massive warship cut through hyperspace toward its destination. Around him, his crew worked with the calm professionalism that came from months of intensive training and the absolute certainty that they were about to make history. Rivers had commanded ships for 23 years, from small patrol vessels hunting pirates in the outer systems to heavy cruisers during the corporate wars. But nothing had prepared him for this moment. In 6 hours, he would drop out of hyperspace facing the largest combined fleet in galactic history. And he would be completely alone. "Captain," Lieutenant Park called from the sensor station, "we're receiving long-range scans from Haven Prime. The alien fleet is massive, sir. I count at least 3,000 vessels in standard blockade formation around the planet." Rivers nodded, calmly. The numbers had been expected, but seeing them confirmed still sent a chill through the bridge crew. 3,000 ships represented the combined military might of 6 different species, each one advanced enough to travel between stars and wage war on a galactic scale. "Any sign they've detected our approach?" Rivers asked. "Negative, sir. We're still running silent, and the new stealth systems are working perfectly. They won't know we're here until we drop out of hyperspace." The Defiance was unlike any ship humanity had ever built. At 2 kilometers long and massing nearly 4 million tons, it was more like a floating city than a traditional warship. But size wasn't what made it special. Every system, every weapon, every piece of technology aboard represented humanity's best attempt to level the playing field against species that had been exploring space for thousands of years. The ship's power, core alone, was a marvel of engineering. Instead of the fusion reactors used by most galactic civilizations, the Defiance ran on humanity's latest breakthrough in zero-point energy extraction. The reactors could generate more power than entire alien battle groups while running almost completely silent. "Engineering reports all systems nominal," came the voice of Chief Peterson over the intercom. "The new reactors are performing better than expected. We could fight at full power for a week without breaking a sweat." Rivers allowed himself a small, Smile. Peterson had been with him for 8 years, through 3 different ships and more battles than either man cared to count. If the chief engineer said the ship was ready, then it was ready. Tactical status on our weapon systems? Lieutenant Commander Wells looked up from his console with barely contained excitement. All weapon systems showing green, sir. The new plasma cannons are locked and loaded. Railgun magazines are full and the graviton torpedo tubes are armed. The enemy is in for quite a surprise. The weapons aboard the Defiance were as revolutionary as its power systems. While most alien species relied on energy shields and beam weapons, humanity had taken a different approach. The ship mounted kinetic weapons that could punch through shields, experimental graviton weapons that ignored conventional defenses entirely, and plasma cannons that hit harder than anything in the known galaxy. Communications, any word from the fleet? Ensign Martinez shook her head. Radio silence, sir, as ordered. But we did receive a personal message for you from Admiral Brooks before we left Earth's communication range. Rivers accepted the data pad and read the short message. It was typical Brooks, direct and to the point. Don't try to win, just make sure they remember. Rivers handed the pad back and returned his attention to the tactical display. Haven Prime, hung in the center of the alien formation like a blue-green jewel surrounded by hungry predators. 3 million human colonists lived on that world, families who had left Earth seeking a better life among the stars. They had no idea that their fate would soon depend on the actions of a single ship and its crew. Captain, Park called out, we're 30 minutes from the jump point. Should I begin final approach protocols? Negative. Hold position here. Rivers stood up and activated the ship-wide communication system. His voice echoed through every corridor, every workstation, every battle position aboard the massive vessel. Attention. All hands, this is the captain. In 25 minutes we will drop out of hyperspace at Haven Prime. What we find there will be the largest enemy fleet in recorded history. They expect us to run, to hide, or to surrender. They're wrong. Paused, letting his words sink in throughout the ship. The Defiance was built for one purpose, to show the galaxy that humanity doesn't back down from bullies no matter how big they are or how many ships they bring. Today, we make our stand. Today, we show them what happens when you threaten our people. The response was immediate and overwhelming. From engineering to the gun decks, from the medical bay to the fighter launch tubes, the crew of the Defiance cheered. These were volunteers, every one of them. They had signed up knowing they might not come home, but they had also signed up knowing they would make a difference. All stations report ready, sir, Wells announced. The ship is at full battle readiness. Rivers settled back into his command chair and studied the tactical display one more time. 3,000 alien ships versus 1 human vessel. By any reasonable measure, it should have been a massacre. But Rivers had spent his entire career learning that reasonable measures didn't always apply when humans were involved. Take us in. Helm. Standard approach, no stealth. Let them see us coming. The Defiance dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Haven Prime system with all the subtlety of a thunderclap. Every sensor in the alien fleet immediately detected the massive human warship as it appeared from nothing, its hull gleaming in the light of the local star. My God, whispered Park as her sensors registered the full scope of the enemy fleet. Captain, there are so many of them. Rivers looked at the main screen, which now showed hundreds of alien vessels scattered across local space in a formation that stretched from the planet's atmosphere to the outer asteroid belt. Ships of every design and size imaginable, representing the combined military might of 6 different civilizations, and in the center of it all 1 human ship. Signal the planet, Rivers ordered. Tell the colonists to remain calm and stay indoors. Then open a channel to the alien fleet. Let's see what they have to say. The response came within minutes. The main screen flickered to life, showing Ambassador Krell aboard his flagship. Behind him, Rivers could see representatives from all 6 allied species, their alien faces displaying what he assumed was amusement. So, Krell said, his 4 eyes gleaming with satisfaction, the Deathworlders send a single ship. I admit, I expected more from a species with such a reputation for warfare. Rivers smiled politely. Ambassador Krell, I presume. I'm Captain Dan Rivers of the UES Defiance. I'm here to deliver a message from the government of Earth. By all means, Captain, deliver your message. We are prepared to accept your surrender. I'm not here to surrender, Rivers replied calmly. I'm here to give you one opportunity to withdraw your forces and return to your home systems. This is your only warning. The alien laughter that followed was translated by the ship's computers as a mixture of clicking, whistling, and harmonic tones. Krell's amusement was obvious even across species barriers. Captain Rivers, you face over 3,000 vessels representing the combined fleets of 6 galactic civilizations. Surely even humans are not foolish enough to believe one ship can stand against such overwhelming force? Rivers leaned forward in his chair, his expression growing cold. You'd be surprised what we consider foolish, Ambassador. Now are you going to leave peacefully, or do I need to make my point more clearly? The laughter stopped. Across the alien fleet, warning systems began activating as sensors detected the Defiance's weapon systems coming online. The human ship might be outnumbered, but it was clearly not defenseless. You cannot be serious, Krell said, his voice losing its mocking tone. You would fight 3,000 ships with one? If that's what it takes. Rivers replied simply. The choice is yours, Ambassador. Leave now or face the consequences. The transmission ended, leaving both fleets in tense silence. On the bridge of the Defiance, Rivers turned to his tactical officer. Wells, lock weapons on their flagship. All batteries, prepare to fire on my command. Sir, Wells said quietly. Are you absolutely sure about this? Rivers looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. They were scared, certainly. Any sane person would be scared facing such impossible odds. But they were also determined, ready to follow their captain into whatever hell awaited them. I've never been more sure of anything in my life, Rivers said firmly. Today we show the galaxy what happens when you threaten our people. Today, the real fight begins. The silence stretched across space for exactly 47 seconds. Then the UES Defiance opened fire. 6 plasma cannons erupted simultaneously from the human warship's forward battery, sending brilliant streams of superheated matter racing across the void toward Ambassador Krell's flagship. The alien vessel's shields flared bright blue as they absorbed the incredible energy, but the light flickered and wavered under the assault. On the bridge of his command ship, Krell stared in shock as his shield generators screamed warning alarms. The power readings were impossible. No single ship could generate that much directed energy. Yet somehow the lone human vessel had just delivered a blow that would have crippled most cruisers. Return fire, Krell roared. All ships converge. On the human vessel, destroy them. What happened next would change the course of galactic warfare forever. Instead of standing still to trade shots with 3,000 enemy ships, the Defiance simply vanished. Emergency hyperspace jump, Rivers had ordered just as his weapons fired. Coordinates Delta 7 Alpha. The massive human warship reappeared, 3 seconds later, not where the aliens expected, but directly behind their formation. Before the enemy could react, every weapon system aboard the Defiance fired at once. Railguns launched tungsten projectiles at a significant fraction of light speed. Plasma cannons sent streams of star-hot matter into the tightly packed enemy formation. Experimental graviton torpedoes ignored shields entirely, tearing at the fabric of space-time itself around their targets. 17 alien ships died in the first volley. Impossible! Thran's mental voice echoed across the fleet's communication channels. Ships cannot make precision hyperspace jumps in combat. The calculations alone would take hours. But the Defiance was already gone again, vanishing in another flash of distorted spacetime. This time it appeared near the gas giant on the edge of the system, where part of the alien fleet was refueling from orbital platforms. Rivers had studied every intelligence report about alien fleet tactics for months. Before this mission, he knew they would spread their forces across multiple orbital positions. He knew they would use the planets and moons for cover. Most importantly, he knew they wouldn't expect him to attack each group separately. Sir, Lieutenant Park called. From sensors, their quantum communication network is using standard encryption protocols. I can track their command signals in real time. Rivers smiled grimly. Human computer technology had advanced rapidly since first contact, driven by the need to understand and counter alien systems. What the enemy considered secure communications, the Defiance could break in minutes. Feed the data to navigation. Show me where their commanders are trying to coordinate from. The battle that followed defied every conventional understanding of space combat. Traditional fleet engagements were massive, lumbering affairs where hundreds of ships would form battle lines and exchange fire until one side was destroyed or retreated. The Defiance fought like no ship in galactic history. It would appear without warning, strike hard at key targets, then vanish before the enemy could coordinate a response. Human engineering allowed for faster hyperspace calculations, more precise targeting systems, and weapons that delivered far more destruction than their size suggested. The alien commanders found themselves fighting not one battle but dozens of separate engagements scattered across the solar system. Every time they tried to concentrate their forces, the human ship would hit them somewhere else. Every time they spread out for better coverage, the Defiance would pick off isolated groups. Status. Report! Krell demanded as another wave of explosions lit up his tactical display. We've lost 237 vessels, his tactical officer reported, his voice shaking. The human ship has taken minor hull damage from debris, but no significant systems appear to be offline. And our own damage to them? The pause that followed told Krell everything he needed to know. In over an hour of combat, the combined fleets of 6 galactic civilizations had failed to land a single meaningful hit on one human warship. Aboard the Defiance, the crew worked with mechanical efficiency. The revolutionary new power systems meant they could fight at full capacity indefinitely. The advanced targeting computers could track hundreds of enemy vessels simultaneously. Most importantly, the ship's experimental hyperspace drive could make jumps that other species considered impossible. Captain, Wells reported from Tactical. Enemy formation is beginning to break up. I'm detecting unauthorized movement from at least 40 vessels. Rivers nodded. Fear was a powerful weapon, and he had been using it systematically. By targeting command ships, supply vessels, and communication relays, he was destroying not just enemy ships, but enemy morale. Any luck breaking their high-level command frequencies? Actually, yes, sir, Martinez replied from communications. Their encryption is more advanced, but the computer just cracked it. We can hear everything Ambassador Krell is saying to his fleet commanders. The bridge speakers crackled to life with alien voices arguing in rapid, panicked tones. The universal translator worked overtime to convert the various languages into understandable English. Retreat immediately. Impossible to coordinate against. Never seen anything like this. My entire squadron is gone. Rivers listened, for a moment, then made a decision that would echo through history. Open a channel to all enemy vessels. Full broadcast. Maximum power. Every ship in the alien fleet received the transmission simultaneously. On their main screens appeared the image of Captain Rivers, sitting calmly in his command chair as if he weren't outnumbered 3,000 to 1. Attention, alien fleet. This is Captain Dan Rivers of the UES Defiance. You came here expecting to fight desperate colonists with nowhere to run. Instead, you found something different. You found humans who refused to be bullied. Behind him, the bridge crew continued their work with quiet professionalism. Weapon systems cycled, targeting computers tracked dozens of enemy ships, and the hyperspace drive charged for the next jump. I want you to think carefully about what you've witnessed today. One human ship has destroyed over 200 of your vessels while taking essentially no damage in return. We're not special. We're not superhuman. We're just humans who got tired of being pushed around. The transmission paused as the Defiance made another jump, appearing directly above Haven Prime. The planet hung below them, its blue oceans and green continents clearly visible through the observation windows. This colony represents everything humans value: freedom to explore, freedom to build, freedom to raise families among the stars. You threaten that. You threaten us. And when you threaten humans, you discover why the rest of the galaxy calls us deathworlders. Ambassador Krell's face appeared on a split screen, his 4 eyes wide with something between rage and fear. Captain Rivers, you cannot possibly believe. I believe in results, Ambassador. Rivers cut him off. In the past hour, your overwhelming force has been reduced to a scattered mob. Your command structure is breaking down. Your ships are fleeing without orders. Is this really the outcome you were hoping for when you decided to threaten my people? The communication channel erupted in alien voices as the various species began arguing among themselves. The Watchers wanted immediate withdrawal. The Drifters were demanding reinforcements. The collective was calculating probability matrices for continued engagement, but it was Ambassador Thren who spoke the words that would end the battle. Enough. This experiment has failed. All Watcher vessels prepare for immediate hyperspace departure. Within minutes, the first alien ships began jumping to hyperspace. The ancient Watchers led the exodus, followed by the aquatic depths and the gas-dwelling Drifters. The mechanical collective took longer to reach consensus, but even they eventually began their withdrawal. Only Krell's hegemony forces remained, along with a few ships from species too proud or too stubborn to admit defeat. But even they could see the writing on the wall. The Great Alliance had crumbled under the assault of a single human vessel. "This isn't over," Krell transmitted on a private channel to the Defiance. "You may have won today, but the galaxy will." "I'd forget this insult," Rivers smiled coldly. "Good, I'm counting on it. The next time someone thinks about threatening human colonies, I want them to remember what happened here. I want them to remember that when deathworlders send one ship, it's not because they're weak." The last of the alien fleet departed Haven Prime 6 hours later, leaving behind the debris of over 800 vessels and the wreckage of their reputation. The Defiance remained on station, its hull scarred but unbroken, a silent guardian watching over the human colony below. The impossible had happened. One ship had faced the combined might of 6 galactic civilizations and emerged victorious. But, more than that, humanity had sent a message that would resonate across the galaxy for generations to come. The age of pushing humans around was over. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened exactly 72 hours after the first shots were fired at Haven Prime. Representatives from across known space gathered in the great chambers of Nexus 7, their faces showing mixtures of shock, anger, and barely controlled panic. Ambassador Krell sat in his designated section, his 4 eyes dull with exhaustion and humiliation. Around him, the surviving members of what the media had already dubbed the Six-Power Alliance tried to make sense of what had happened. The numbers were devastating. 847 ships destroyed. Another 302 damaged. To fight, thousands of crew members dead or missing, all because of one human vessel. "The floor recognizes Ambassador Thren of the Watchers," announced the council speaker, an ancient being whose species had maintained neutrality for millennia. Thren's energy form flickered as he addressed the assembly. "Honored colleagues, what occurred at Haven Prime represents a fundamental shift in galactic power dynamics. The humans have demonstrated capabilities far beyond our intelligence estimates." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. The Watchers were the oldest known species in the galaxy, survivors of conflicts and catastrophes that had destroyed entire civilizations. If they were concerned about human military potential, everyone should be. "Their hyperspace technology alone changes everything," Thren continued. "The ability to make precision combat jumps in real time eliminates every tactical advantage we thought we possessed. Traditional fleet formations, coordination protocols, even basic defensive strategies become worthless against such capability." Representative Vorth of the Collective rose from his mechanical platform. "The tactical analysis is troubling, but incomplete. One ship, regardless of its capabilities, should not have been able to coordinate attacks across multiple orbital zones simultaneously. The processing power required exceeds known limits for vessels of that size. Unless," interrupted Ambassador Neth of the Depths, her aquatic voice carrying through the chamber's water-filled communication tank, "their computer systems are more advanced than we assumed, much more advanced." The implications hung in the air like a poisonous cloud. If humans had achieved breakthrough advances in multiple critical technologies simultaneously, the balance of power in the galaxy had shifted overnight. Meanwhile, on Haven Prime, life was slowly returning to normal. The colonists had watched the battle from their shelter bunkers, seeing flashes of light in the sky as alien ships exploded. Now they emerged to find debris raining down from space, twisted metal fragments that served as reminders of how close they had come to forced evacuation. Dr. Sarah Chen walked through New Geneva, the colony's main city, surveying the damage from falling debris. Most of it was superficial, broken windows and damaged roofs from chunks of alien hull plating. But the psychological impact was enormous. 3 million humans had just witnessed their species face down the combined might of 6 galactic civilizations, and win. The supply shipments are already behind schedule, reported Colony Administrator Roberts as he joined her survey. Half the galactic shipping companies have suspended service to human colonies. They're scared. Chen nodded grimly. The victory at Haven Prime had come with a price. Many alien species were now treating humans with open suspicion and fear. Trade agreements were being canceled. Diplomatic relations were cooling rapidly, but there were positive changes too. 3 different species had already approached Earth directly, seeking to establish stronger ties with humanity. The message was clear. Better to be friends with the Deathworlders than enemies. Aboard the Defiance, now holding a standard orbit around Haven Prime, the crew was still processing what they had accomplished. The ship's medical bay was treating minor injuries from the battle, mostly cuts from debris impacts during hyperspace jumps, but overall casualties were remarkably light. "Captain," Lieutenant Park reported during the morning briefing, "we're receiving communication requests from over 40 different news organizations across the galaxy. Everyone wants to interview the crew that faced down the 6-Power Alliance." Rivers shook his head firmly. "Negative. We don't talk to reporters. Our job was to protect the colony and send a message. Both objectives accomplished." Chief Peterson looked up from his damage assessment reports. "Speaking of messages, sir, I've been analyzing the battle recordings. The aliens made some interesting tactical mistakes. They never adapted to our jump capabilities, never tried to predict our next target location." "Explain." "Well, sir, their commanders seemed to panic. Instead of treating us like a single fast-moving threat, they kept trying to fight us like we were a traditional battle fleet. They spread their forces too thin, trying to cover everything instead of concentrating their firepower where we were actually operating." Rivers nodded thoughtfully. The psychological aspect of the battle had been just as important as the technological one. Fear made intelligent beings do stupid things, and he had deliberately cultivated that fear by targeting command vessels and supply ships first. "Any word from Earth Command?" "Yes, sir," Martinez replied. "Admiral Brooks sends his congratulations and new orders. We're to remain on station at Haven Prime until further notice. Apparently our presence here is making diplomatic waves across the galaxy." Back at Nexus 7, the emergency council session was reaching a critical point. Ambassador Krell had been summoned to explain how the most powerful military alliance in recent history had been defeated by a single enemy vessel. "The human ship employed tactics we have never encountered," Krell admitted, his voice heavy with shame. "They used hyperspace like a weapon, appearing and disappearing faster than our targeting systems could track. Our coordination protocols became liabilities instead of advantages." "And their weapons?" pressed Counselor Vex of the Trade Federation. "Our intelligence suggested human military technology was decades behind galactic standards." "Our intelligence was wrong," Krell replied bluntly. "Their plasma cannons hit harder than anything in our arsenal. Their kinetic weapons punched through shields that should have been impenetrable, and they had exotic weapons that ignored our defenses entirely." The chamber fell silent as delegates processed this information. If humans possessed such advanced military technology, what else might they be hiding? Their rapid expansion across the galaxy suddenly looked less like desperate colonization and more like calculated conquest. Ambassador Thren spoke again, his ancient voice carrying the weight of eons. "There is another possibility we must consider. What if this was not their strongest ship?" The silence that followed was deafening. Every delegate had assumed the Defiance represented humanity's best effort, their ultimate weapon deployed in desperation. But what if it was just a test? What if they had dozens of such vessels, hundreds? "The humans must be contained," declared Representative Zorth of the Hegemony Military Command. "If we allow them to continue their expansion unchecked, They will eventually threaten every civilized system in the galaxy. With what? Thren asked pointedly. The Six-Power Alliance represented the largest military force assembled in recorded history. It was destroyed by one ship. Do you propose we send 20,000 vessels next time? 50,000? At what point do we admit that military action against humans is not viable? The debate that followed would continue for days, but the outcome was already becoming clear. The galaxy's major powers were faced with a choice: adapt to the new reality of human capabilities or risk complete military defeat. On Earth, the news of the victory at Haven Prime spread like wildfire. Celebrations erupted in cities across the planet as humans realized their species had just faced down the greatest military threat in galactic history and emerged triumphant. But in the quiet halls of military command centers, a different conversation was taking place. Admiral Brooks met with his senior staff to discuss the implications of their victory. The aliens will be more cautious now, General Hayes observed. They won't underestimate us again. Good, Brooks replied. Caution leads to hesitation. Hesitation leads to strategic paralysis. As long as they're afraid to test us, we have breathing room to continue our expansion. And if they're not afraid? Torres asked. Brooks smiled grimly. Then we remind them why they should be. The defiance proved our capabilities, but it also proved something more important. It proved that humans don't back down from bullies, no matter how big they are or how many friends they bring. The victory at Haven Prime had indeed changed the galaxy. Humanity had emerged from the shadows of galactic civilization to take their place among the major powers. But with great power came great scrutiny, and the universe was now watching humanity more closely than ever before. The question that remained was simple. What would the Deathworlders do next?
6 months after the Battle of Haven Prime, the galaxy looked very different. Trade routes that had operated for centuries were being rerouted to avoid human space. Ancient alliances were being reconsidered. Most importantly, the word human
had entered the common vocabulary of dozens of species as a synonym for unpredictable and dangerous. Ambassador Krell stood before the rebuilt Hegemony High Command, delivering his final report on what military historians were already calling the greatest tactical defeat in galactic history. The numbers were even worse than initial estimates. 912 ships destroyed or too damaged to repair. Over 60,000 crew members dead or missing. The economic cost of the disaster would take decades to recover from. Humans have established a permanent patrol around Haven Prime, Krell reported to the assembled military leaders. Their ship, the Defiance, maintains a standard orbit and has not moved from the system since the battle. Intelligence suggests they view it as a symbol of their victory. General Vorth leaned forward from his mechanical platform. Have there been any attempts to test their defenses? Probe missions? Reconnaissance flights? Negative, Krell replied grimly. No species has been willing to send ships anywhere near human territory. The Merchants Guild has classified all human systems as high-risk zones. Insurance companies refuse to cover voyages to human space. The silence that followed spoke volumes. The most powerful military alliance in galactic history had been so thoroughly defeated that nobody wanted to risk even peaceful contact with humanity. But the real changes were happening far from military command centers. On the ancient world of Sanctuary, home to the Watchers, Ambassador Thren floated in his meditation chamber, reviewing intelligence reports that would have seemed impossible just months earlier. 3 separate species had already signed formal non-aggression pacts with Earth. The crystalline chorus had offered exclusive mining rights to rare minerals in exchange for human protection of their trade routes. The Void Dancers had requested human military advisors to help modernize their fleet tactics. Most shocking of all, the Merchant Collective had quietly approached Earth about purchasing human military technology. The request had been politely declined, but the very fact that it was made showed how completely the galactic balance of power had shifted. The humans are being very careful, Thren's aide observed as they reviewed the reports together. They could leverage their victory to demand territory, resources, or favorable trade agreements. Instead, they seemed content to simply continue their expansion, as if nothing happened. Thren's energy form pulsed with what might have been amusement. Perhaps that is precisely the point. They fought not for conquest, but for the right to be left alone. Now that they have demonstrated the cost of threatening them, they return to their original goals. On Haven Prime, life had indeed returned to normal, though normal now included a constant reminder of humanity's changed status in the galaxy. The massive form of the UES Defiance hung in the sky like a protective moon, visible to the naked eye during certain times of day. Colony Administrator Roberts had just finished his weekly meeting with the Planetary Council when his aide brought him an unusual communication request. "Sir, we're receiving a diplomatic transmission from the Nexus Council. They want to establish a trade embassy on Haven Prime." Roberts blinked in surprise. 6 months ago, the same council had supported the military action to remove human colonists from this very planet. Now they wanted to establish diplomatic relations. "Schedule the meeting," he decided. "But make sure they understand that any embassy operates under human law and human protection." The message was clear. Haven Prime was no longer just another frontier colony. It had become a symbol of human strength and determination. Any species wanting to do business here would do so on human terms. Aboard the Defiance, Captain Rivers reviewed his daily status reports with satisfaction. The ship had become more than a weapon. It had become a statement. Every day it remained in orbit around Haven Prime sent a message to the galaxy. Humans protected their own. "Captain, Lieutenant," Park announced from her sensor station, "we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth Command. Admiral Brooks wants a secure conference in 1 hour." Rivers nodded and made his way to his private quarters, where the most secure communication equipment on the ship was located. When the encrypted connection was established, Brooks' face appeared on the screen with the expression Rivers had learned to recognize over the years. The Admiral had news, and it was important. "Dan, congratulations on the 6-month mark. Your mission has exceeded every possible expectation." "Thank you, sir. The crew has performed admirably. What's the situation back home?" Brooks smiled grimly. "That's what I wanted to discuss. The galaxy has noticed our little demonstration at Haven Prime. We've received formal diplomatic contact requests from 18 different species. 3 have offered military alliances, 5 want trade agreements, and the rest are basically asking permission to exist near human space." Rivers felt a chill of realization. "Sir, are you saying—" "I'm saying the galaxy is afraid of us, Dan. Really afraid. Your single ship has accomplished what centuries of traditional diplomacy could never have achieved. Humanity is now considered a major galactic power." The implications were staggering. In less than a century since first contact, humanity had gone from curiosity to threat to major power, all because one ship had refused to back down from impossible odds. "What are our orders, sir?" "Continue your patrol. The Defiance has become a symbol, and symbols matter in galactic politics. But Dan, there's something else you need to know. Intelligence reports suggest that several species are now actively studying human military capabilities. They're trying to figure out how we did what we did. And if they succeed—" Brooks was quiet for a moment. "Then we make sure they remember that the Defiance wasn't our only ship. It was just our opening statement." The transmission ended, leaving Rivers alone with his thoughts. Through his cabin window, he could see Haven Prime rotating slowly below, its lights twinkling like scattered diamonds against the darkness. 3 million human colonists lived their lives down there, safe under the protection of his ship and crew. But Rivers understood that the safety was temporary. The galaxy had learned to fear humanity, but fear could motivate as easily as it could paralyze. Somewhere out there, alien scientists were working to duplicate human technology. Military commanders were developing new tactics to counter human advantages. Politicians were forming new alliances to contain human expansion. The Battle of Haven Prime had ended one threat, but it had also created new ones. Humanity had announced their arrival as a galactic power, but now they would have to prove they deserved that status. 6 months later, the first reports arrived of alien ships equipped with experimental hyperspace drives. A year after that, The hegemony unveiled new weapon systems clearly inspired by human designs. The galaxy was adapting, learning, preparing, but humanity was preparing too. In shipyards across human space, new vessels were taking shape. Ships that incorporated lessons learned from the Defiance's victory. Ships designed not just to win battles, but to win wars. The message sent at Haven Prime had been received loud and clear. Humans were not to be underestimated. But the galaxy's response carried its own message. The age of easy victories was over. As Captain Rivers looked out at the stars, he smiled grimly. The real test of humanity's place in the galaxy was just beginning. The Defiance had proven that humans could fight. Now they would have to prove they could lead. But that was a challenge for another day. For now, it was enough that the galaxy knew the truth. When Deathworlders sent one ship, it wasn't because they were weak. It was because one ship was all they needed to make their point. And the point had been made with devastating clarity. Humanity was here to stay, and anyone who thought otherwise was welcome to test that conclusion. At their own risk. The stars, wheeled overhead, silent witnesses to the changing galaxy. In the depths of space, new alliances were forming and old ones crumbling. The balance of power that had remained stable for millennia was shifting like sand in a storm. And at the center of it all, one human ship continued its patient orbit around one human world. A reminder to the galaxy that some lines should never be crossed. The message had been sent. The message had been received. Now everyone would discover what came next in the age of humanity among the stars.